Make me sweat, make me harder, make me lose my...
Personality hires are arguably more important than people that do actual work.
My man Daniel might have a valid point, but only up to a certain level. Let me explain. If you're early on into your career, you have less than 7 years of experience, the reason why you get hired is because of your personality. But when you're going for mid-level manager positions and up, companies give less F's about how well you're with other people and management skills, and they actually care how well can you solve the problem at hand, how good are your technical skills, how good are you getting shit done. So the way to win in your career is first to be a personality hire, and as you get older, develop a technical skill that they can't ignore. Now you know.
When you get asked on the job interview about a disagreement with a boss or a coworker, here's how to handle it. With a coworker, what they really want to know is what steps can you take to solve a problem, who else do you get involved, and how do you move forward from a situation like this? So while thinking of a story to use in this example, try to find one where you and the coworker resolved it without having to go get a higher up involved. If you don't have that situation, that's fine. The key points to get across in this story are how you both talked through your sides, how you listened to the other side, where compromises were made, and how you move forward with no bitterness from it. I would also try to not pick a story where you just railroaded your way into being correct. With your boss, the key difference here is that you likely were not going to get your way. The key, however, is a story where you respectfully stated your case, listened to the boss's reasoning for doing it the other way, came to an understanding, and then moved forward with the decision. It is okay to push back on your boss sometimes, but even if in the end of the story it should have gone your way and not your boss's way, that can be left out. Again, do not be harboring resentment when telling these stories. How well do you listen? How well do you explain your part? How well do you move forward in a peaceful situation? What are the best skills to have on a job interview? To me, I think there's a couple things that stand out. One is showing a level of preparedness for this interview. And I don't mean studying the company, and you don't have to spend a lot of time to do this. But having a real understanding of how the company makes money and how your role adds value in that process can be huge. People who understand that tend to be able to talk about their answers in a way that shows how it is going to help the company create more value with your role. Two is being an active listener. People get nervous in interviews and they stop listening sometimes when they get nervous. They are so ready to say the stuff they prepared to say, ask the questions they prepared to ask, that they stop noticing if it really makes sense to say it or ask it at this point in the interview, being able to adapt with the interview. A third skill people really need to work on for interviews is their storytelling. I mean it in understanding what is important when you answer questions and when you tell people a story. Because that's what talking through your experience is. People who understand the beginning, the middle, and the end of what they need to get through and know how to hit those points wind up being able to tell a good, detailed, while still concise answer to questions without getting off the path or rambling. Come in prepared, listen actively and throw out the script you were planning to say and let it go based on how the conversation goes, and understand the highlights of a story and what to include and lead out when you answer questions. Practice this over time with multiple interviews and even in your own interview prep, and you will see the difference in how you feel during an interview.
When you get to the end of the interview and your interviewer goes, "Do you have any questions for me?" And you say, "Yeah, what do you like about working here?" The period at the end of an interview is your one chance to suss out if this company is going to be a place that helps you develop and flourish and make more money. Let me give you a couple you can ask instead. What is this company's relationship with time? I know, spooky, ambiguous, but listen for responses that tell you about how colleagues collaborate when they work across different time zones, or whether they expect you to work after hours or on the weekends, or how they treat you when you take PTO. What is the most unexpected thing you've learned while working here? There is no chance that your interviewer is going to have a canned response to this question, so you're gonna get some real shit by asking this. How does collaboration happen? I swear collaboration is like 90% of a job. So listen for red flags that might point to bureaucracy or a lot of red tape in moving things forward, or a toxic environment where coworkers don't want to help each other. How does employee development happen? You would be shocked at how many companies do not think about the growth of their employees, like at all. Listen for information about their performance review cycle, or how feedback is given, or how the company invests in the development of their employees.
Tell us about a time when you had a disagreement with a colleague or a team member. How did you handle it? What was the outcome? But in a previous role, a colleague and I had disagreed on critical elements for a time-sensitive project. For this to move forward, I had to not only make sure that my colleague and I resolved our differences, but also that we presented a united front to leadership. To make this happen, I had a one-on-one meeting with my colleague to get us back on the same page. Once I understood her perspective, she saw mine, and we found common ground, combining the best elements of both ideas and presenting a new approach to the team. Ultimately, as a result, not only did we find common ground, we were able to complete the project on time and receive glowing feedback from our stakeholders.
Here's how I interview for a job that I know I'm overqualified for. It is important to understand that companies don't usually view being overqualified as a selling point. Understanding those concerns helps you address them. The approach is confirming and making it clear what about this level of work is appealing to you. So for example, I have been in management and in leadership roles before, but I realize I missed the work of being hands-on. I realize it may look abnormal to a lot of people to take that step backwards, but I know is where I have the best impact on work, and I know is where I am happiest at work. Focusing on how this step backwards is going to allow you to perform better and keep you happy is the key here. If you make it about money, if you make it about the fact that you're willing to do the job and not that you want to do the job, if you give off signs that as soon as something back on your level opens, you will dart for it, the company's warning flags will go up. The way people wind up in a role that they are overqualified for is by making it clear that is what they want to do, not what they're just going to do.
When a recruiter asks, how do you work under pressure in an interview, this is specifically what you're going to say.
My friend M there with some amazing tips. This is what I would say. Anytime you get a tell me about a time question like these, they aren't looking for a magic skill or a magic tool that you used. Instead, what they're really looking for is, did you learn from that experience and what did you learn? So for that pressure question, don't say something like, back in my last job, I had a high stakes, high pressure moment with my coworker. We just talked it out and everything was fine. Instead, remember, you want to focus on what you learned. Say this instead. Yeah, happy to share. I mean, of course, no one likes to be in high pressure moments, but there's been a couple times in my career where I've experienced it. In my last role, there was a sprint to get the project done, and one of our key vendors actually missed a deadline to ship out their products. As you can imagine, we were all scrambling, but the one thing that I learned from that was, and whatever that thing that you learned, that is what you want to focus on. That is what you want to sell. So remember here, anytime you get those situational questions, don't just answer the question point blank. Tell them a story and what you learned. Good luck.
People who are the smartest or the people who are the hardest workers don't necessarily get promoted, but people who are able to articulate their ideas, people who are able to talk and carry on small conversations are the ones who end up getting promoted. There's even research that said if you speak the most in any meeting, people just automatically tend to think that you're an expert, that you're competent, that you know what you're talking about. And obviously this is flawed, and whoever speaks the most doesn't necessarily mean we'll have the most knowledge, but that's kind of how we subconsciously think. So I was making a joke with my friends at work and saying that I should hold a lunch and learn called How to Yap Professionally. And tell me why some of my friends were like, honestly, I would attend that. Would you attend that? How to yap professionally at work?
A job interview is a conversation between two liars. I love this quote. Why? Because it's completely true. You're there, you're being interviewed, you're lying because you're talking about how great you are at absolutely everything. And even when they ask you what your weaknesses are, you make something up. Okay, that's human. I get it. And then the person who's interviewing you, they're lying too because they're telling you how great the company is. And they're actually describing the job to you on its very best day. They're not telling you about the very bad days and also the horrible clients and the coworkers are a little cuckoo. So any job interview is a conversation between two people who, for all good reasons, are not exactly telling the truth. Just know that going in. It's part of work. It's part of business. I wish it weren't so, but it is. I'm Suzywelch. I'm a professor of management practice at NYU Stern School of Business.
You